I would like to start by addressing two sets of thank you. Thank you to welcome me today among you. Thank you to allow someone from the Middle East to speak about our countries and about the Middle East, because for us, Italy is a very dear country. Italian products are very important. Italy, we have a lot of admiration for Italy, and it's important for us also to express ourselves. Second and most important is thanks to all the companies who are represented here today. I think you are doing a great job of bringing all those products full of creativity, of know-how, full of your expertise, of your hard work, of a lot of passion that you and your teams are doing. I wish in my name and the name of the people of the Middle East to thank you for it. Before speaking about how we see our perspective for 2011, I thought it was important for me to speak about the Middle Eastern market, the Middle Eastern consumer, very briefly, and then the perspective for 2011. So, what about the Middle Eastern market? If I take a small flashback about the markets in general, if we go back to the 60s, the Middle Eastern market were mainly markets which were driven by shops in the souks. Luxury was sold mainly person to person, very targeted clients, and the brand presence were hardly available, very tactical for the brand availability, with a consumer which was quite naive, a consumer which was looking for luxury as things which were expensive and buying it because they were expensive. If we go 20 years later, in the 80s, the market started to organize itself. There has been the development of the first malls in the Middle East, in Kuwait, in Dubai. There has been the arrival of some mono brands. Very few of them arrived into the early 80s, but with a multiplication of players into the market. The brands in general looked at the Middle East as quite an opportunistic market, an export market, a market which they wanted just to penetrate. And the consumer itself, the consumer was looking for show-off, was looking for showing the social status, was looking for the bling-bling, because for the consumer in the Middle East, luxury would mean this bling-bling, this expression of the social status. But things have changed. If we look at the years 2000 or today, the Middle East market has become a more sophisticated market. We can see into the Middle East some of the most interesting malls around the world. We can see a retail environment which is extremely interesting for those of you who have visited some of the countries, and particularly in Dubai. There has been this real estate boom, and within the real estate boom, we have had this retail wave which came into it, and luxury retail about it. The Middle East became strategic for a lot of brands, and a lot of brands started investing into it, starting developing really the equity of the brand, and not only looking at it as an opportunistic export market. And the consumer has become much more aware. The consumer has become much more aware about luxury, about quality, but also for the consumer, luxury is becoming more and more a personal pleasure. So if we project ourselves for the future, if we project ourselves for tomorrow, how will be the Middle Eastern market? There will be more and more entrant into the market. I was reading in one of the surveys that today Dubai is probably the third country in terms of brand presence into their freestanding stores in general. There will be more and more alternative channels. There will be more sophisticated either department stores, which have very little penetrated yet the market, or specialty stores, which will be offering a real value for the customers. There will be a lot of increased sophistication in all the marketing activities. The brand presence it's not only today strategic for the brands and tomorrow it will be more strategic, but it will become critical for the brands to be present into the Middle East. It will be critical to cover the Middle East, not only one of the cities, not only Dubai per se, to window a little bit the brand, but definitely to penetrate really the whole Middle Eastern market, at least the whole GCC market. There will be, at the same time, more entrants, more niche brands, more bridge brands, which we will see because the customer himself will become much more sophisticated. The customer will become more aware, is becoming more and more educated, and luxury will become more a way of life. So a lot of future for luxury into the Middle East. Now, if we speak about this Middle Eastern customer, the Middle Eastern customer, if I can take some of the few specificities about the Middle Eastern customers. First, I would say the Middle Eastern customer, for the Middle Eastern customer, shopping is very important. Shopping at home, shopping when they travel. Shopping is a leisure for the Middle Eastern customer. Shopping is really seen as central point of the social life. Shopping is a real pleasure for the Middle Eastern customer. They enjoy it, we enjoy it, they love it, and I think this is very strong fundamental of the Middle Eastern customer. And not only they enjoy shopping, but usually, especially for the GCC customer, he has a very strong purchase power, which means that he can afford it. More and more, the Middle Eastern customer is in quest for individuality. More and more, the Middle Eastern customer, unlike before, is not only going to be dressed from toes to head exactly into the same thing in what I have seen. He is aspiring more and more to his own style. He wants the latest. He loves brands. He enjoys brands. He loves brands because he is reassured by the brands. But at the same time, and this is what makes our market a little bit more complex, he is bound to a very strong social codes. The Middle Eastern customer needs endorsement by family member, by friends. Often he goes shopping with family and friends, and he needs their endorsement and not only his own opinion. He is very respectful of traditional values. Yes, he wants fashion, he wants trends, he wants the latest fashion, but at the same time, he's very interested by maintaining the traditional value. And he's a very loyal customer. What he is looking, and I don't think it's the only part of the world, is to be acceptably unique into his luxury. Yes, uniqueness, point of differentiation, innovation, trendy, and here is where it comes to the non-brands. He feels reassured by those non-brands, but he still researches this uniqueness in whatever he looks for. The Middle Eastern customer is also adopting a new mindset. Before, probably he was spending without counting. Today, he still spend quite substantially, but he looks for more value for money. He wants more quality. He wants more elements. He wants more service being offered for the money he is ready to pay. Not only he look for buying, for giving, for gifting, but also as a self-indulgence. He would like much more a personalized service, a very clear and personalized service. So what about the future? How is a little bit the perspective into the luxury into the Middle East? We are in a part of the world where the fundamentals are very strong. The fundamentals are very strong because, again, we have economies which are booming, not only thanks to the oil and the oil prices, but also because of the whole diversification of the economy, which has happened since now 10, 20 years and which will get accelerated. There is definitely substantial purchase power, which will continue improving. And with this purchase power, which is improving, we have a demography which is playing a very positive role. Over 50% of the population in Saudi Arabia or in the UAE are less than 20 or less than 30 years old, which means a very young population and a population which will increasingly arrive to the market, will have purchase power and will have ability to spend. Saudi Arabia today is a 25 million population. In 15 years, it will be over a 50 million population with a growing purchase power per person. Fundamentals are big, are good also because it has been, and particularly Dubai, a very strong tourist market. It's still, and it will continue to be part of this tourist attracting both European and Asians. But most important, it is a strong local market, and I'm speaking about GCC market. Today, most of our activity are with the Middle Eastern GCC customers, which is increasing in rate about it. We have most of the market which returned to growth, important growth. If we could see, Qatar has shown 16% growth. And in spite of a lot of cancellation of real estate projects of Dubai, which are often in the highlight of the news, there is still sizable projects for the coming years to come, over $2 trillion of projects which are maintained or developed within all the area, which will give a lot of opportunity of growth. And if we speak about the number of passengers, of visitors, of tourists flowing in and out of our market, it has been booming for the past six months. We are at plus 19% compared to last year. If we look at some of the studies which have been made in 2009, at the middle of the recession, which has been more a slowdown in our markets than a recession. And if we speak about those GCC customers themselves, their spending have either maintained or increased much more than they have reduced their spending. So in spite of the slowdown, the GCC customer continued to increase his spending in general. If we speak about the consumer confidence, within the consumer confidence, which is at the highest in July 2007, oil was at above $120. It went down quite substantially, and the weakest was in February 2009. Today, the confidence is quite recovered in most of the countries, and even if it doesn't reach yet the level of July 2007, it is back to normality. Now, if we speak about perspective, we have known into the Middle East, I would say, years of exuberance, golden years between 2004 and 2008, in which growth has been not only a double-digit growth, but over 20%, 24%, 28%, 35%. In 2009, and perhaps my figures differ a little bit from some of the figures which we have seen earlier, we didn't have, if we speak about Dubai alone, probably we had a little recession or slowdown, and probably we were at -3, -4%. But if we take the Middle East as a whole, even 2009, we were still into a growth pattern. We were still at about +5% compared to 2008. Now, 2010 has been a rebound even in the Middle East. And some of the results which we have collected till end of July were at +18%. So our forecast of +15% for the year is even a conservative, I would say, forecast compared to what the reality of the market. So quite a strong rebound. And quite a strong rebound with strong fundamentals, because it's based mainly onto the local market. If we speak our perspective for 2011, and those perspectives were based on the +15%, we are looking at +8%, but even the +12%, which has been mentioned earlier, is totally achievable, because once again, the fundamentals are there. If I have a small look just by market, and the focus on the market within the whole area of the Middle East, in which we have included both Egypt and Iran. I would say if we go back to the 60s, probably the only countries which was a little bit developed compared to the rest was Lebanon. And then in 75, there has been a little bit this Lebanese civil war, which blocked a little bit Lebanon. And then probably in the 80s, the focus was mainly into Kuwait, end of 70s, early 80s. And this is where some of the shopping mall or brands get implemented. Then if we go back to the 90s, the focus has been in Dubai and maintained in Dubai in the 90s, but also in the more recent year, in 2000, even if Saudi Arabia have started to have a bigger part of the cake. If we look of the future, and perhaps starting by the present before the future, where the business is growing today into the Middle East, where we have the strongest growth, as I said, it's on the local market and on the local consumption. And where does it mean? It means cities like Abu Dhabi, which is continuing booming, cities like Doha, Qatar, also it's 1,500,000, 1,600,000 population. It is with a very high purchase power, and cities like Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and consistently Saudi Arabia, which is continuing booming. If we go further, if we look at the next 10, 15 years, in 10, 15 years, definitely markets with high population, markets which have, again, strong fundamentals, which are still into the infancy, like Egypt or like Iran, when the political situation will be stabilized, will definitely be part of the developing part of it. So at the same time, we have those countries like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, which are continuing to grow fastly. And at the same time, we have some of the other cities and the other countries within the Middle East, which will be, for us, probably the motor of our future growth, and to continue into those expansion, which are probably more a double digit. As you have seen earlier, it's today a 4-5 billion euro market for the luxury products, but within the coming 10 years, this market will be at 10-12 billion euros, which would be quite a sizable market, representing 5% of the world markets. And to conclude, if we want to maintain sustainable growth into the Middle East, we have to maintain a very strong understanding of the market. We have to more and more edit ourselves into a way which is acceptable to the Middle Eastern customer and moving and understanding it. And we have to have a much more personal touch with the people and with the consumer. And as I said, it's not anymore the time where we just put a flag and we make export, but to have a deep understanding of the customer and the way forward. Thank you.